Word allows you to add graphics to your document, but sometimes it can seem like those graphics have a mind of their own. In this video, I demonstrate how easy it is to add graphics and show you how to make them do what you want. I'm going to try to make this as hands-on of a video as possible, just so you understand how graphics work within the Word environment. What I want to do is I want to start with a little bit of text here. So we'll put in some random text. And then in order to make this a little bit more usable, I'm going to decrease the size of the zoom on this particular document because we're not going to pay too much attention to the words. We need to work with the actual graphics that we're going to place within this document. Now, in order to put a graphic within your document, just pick an insertion point like I've done right here. And then I'm going to display the Insert tab of the ribbon. Notice that there's underneath in the Illustrations group, there's a tool here called Pictures. And if I click on that, then I can select where I want to get my picture from. Normally, I select pictures that are on my computer already, and so I would choose this device. Now notice when I hover over that, even though the option says this device, the little box that appears when I hover over it says From File. In older versions of Word, that was the name of the option because you were going to pull that graphic from a file. So this is from a file that's on my computer. I click on it and I see basically a dialog box that looks very similar to a regular open dialog box. Right now I'm looking at my desktop and I have two pictures here on the desktop. I'm going to choose this first picture right here by clicking on it, and then I'm going to click on the Insert button. And this is a picture of my mother-in-law and my wife when my wife was very young. Notice that this image has what are called handles around it. At all corners and sides of the image, you'll see these little dots, these hollow dots. These are called handles. I'll show you how to use those in just a moment. And notice above the one that's in the center, there's a little circular arrow that shows up there. That particular one I'll show you how to use as well because it has to do with how you place or how you position that graphic on your page. Now I'm going to click outside of this area so that you can see that those handles disappear as soon as I've clicked somewhere else within my document. If I want those handles to appear again, then I can just click on the document itself. Notice as well as when I move that mouse pointer over the image, it changes to a four-headed arrow. So I click once on it, and then I can use these handles to do various things with this image. So for instance, if I want to make this image a smaller image so it doesn't take up so much of the page, note what happens when I go right to the corner. I get the mouse pointer changes into a diagonal two-headed arrow. It looks different if I put it on one of the side ones. Now it's an up and down arrow. And if I go to the right, it's a right pointing left and right arrow. If I click on any of these handles and drag that handle in the direction I want to go, then Word will adjust the appearance of that image according to how I'm dragging it. I typically, when I want to keep things the same way, meaning looking the same way, I will click in a corner, like in this upper left corner here, and then I will drag. And notice that everything is kept at the same aspect ratio. And then when I release the mouse, that's how my image is resized. Those handles still appear around the image so that I can continue to make adjustments in the sizing of the image as I may desire. Now I told you about this control right up here at the top that's a circular arrow. Notice when I put the mouse pointer over the top of that, the mouse pointer also shows a circular arrow. So if I click and drag on this, what happens is I'm rotating that image. Notice how it rotates on the screen, and then I can release the mouse button and it stays at that rotation that I had it at. Now I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo that rotation. You have to understand that in a Word document, images can be either inline or they can be above the text on what's called a graphics layer, if you will. When I have this picture selected, Word automatically displays the Picture Format tab of the ribbon. And then I can use the tools within that ribbon to affect how that graphic works in relation to the text in my document. Notice this one right over here says Position. If I click on that, you'll see that there's two distinct areas within these options. One is inline with text, and the other is with text wrapping. This image happens to be inline with text. It's this one right here. In fact, if I click on it again, you'll see that there was no change in how it appears. I know that it's inline with text because we had placed the insertion point at the beginning of the paragraph, placed the graphic within the document, and then it moved all the text over on a single line in order to allow this image to be in here. But I can also change it so it wraps. And that's what each of these are down here. There's 9 different choices. And if I just hover over these, it shows me what happens with my document based upon the choice that I'm hovering over at the time. You can see how it affects the placement of that image within the document. So normally what I would do is I would pick something like this one, Position in top left with square text wrapping. And if I click on that, notice that it now has that text that goes around this particular image or this graphic that I have within the document. Now there may be something here that you missed a little bit. Remember the controls that are around the image when it's selected? You'll see that those handles are still there, and we still have the rotation handle at the top of the image. But look just to the left of the image. You'll see something that looks like a little boat anchor, because that's exactly what it is. It is a boat anchor to indicate where this particular image is anchored in the document. Notice that it's just out to the left of the paragraph where we originally inserted this particular graphic. This anchor is very, very important because you can anchor an image to just about any paragraph that you want to anchor it to. In fact, notice that I can go over here and I move the mouse pointer over it and it says Object Anchor. I can actually click and drag that object anchor so that it's somewhere else. If I want this anchored somewhere else, I can anchor it to a different paragraph, like right down here. And then if I take and I drag this, what happens is that it moves the anchor as well. Notice that it moves it to the nearest paragraph to the upper left corner of that image. And now it's anchored right there. If I placed a whole lot of new text in this document, like right here before this paragraph, and it pushed that paragraph below it to the next page, it's going to push that image to the next page as well. Why? Because that image is anchored to that paragraph. It travels with that paragraph from page to page to page. So that's why I said it's very important to understand where that anchor is and what that anchor does as your text moves within the document itself. Now you'll remember that just a little while ago we used the Position tool on the Picture Format tab of the ribbon to be able to indicate how we wanted this graphic to be treated in relation to the document itself. You may have noticed that underneath these options down here, there's one that says More Layout Options right down here at the bottom. If I click on that one, then I see a layout dialog box that gives me positioning options as to where I place that on the page. I can specify an absolute position. Oh, I don't know, we can go down to 1.5 inches to the right of the margin. That means That picture will now be placed 1.5 inches from that right-hand margin. But I can also choose other options as well that affect where that image appears on the page as a whole. I'm not going to describe each of these controls within this dialog box right now. I just want you to understand that they're available and you can play with them so that you can get your image positioned exactly where you want it to be on your page. Now, there's another tab up here that says text wrapping, and if we choose text wrapping, you'll notice that the option that is selected is square. That was selected when we chose a position just a little while ago for this image. But you can play with each of these if you want to, and it affects how the text is flowed in relation to the image that you have placed within the document. So for instance, you may want to have the image go behind the text within the document. So you would just select this one, and then when you click on OK, notice that the text goes right over the top of that image. You might want that if your image that you're using is very faint and it can act as a watermark on the page. Again, we can go back to this image, we can choose position, and then more layout options, and we can get back to that text wrapping, and we can select any of these that we want in order to control how that text flows around the graphic. I'm going to go back to the square option right up here, and when I did that, you'll notice that the controls at the bottom of this tab on the dialog box now became available, and I can specify, if I want to, how far from the text that graphic actually appears, so that I can put more white space around the graphic if I want to. So if I wanted to, I could say, oh, we'll put 1/10 of an inch here and here, and we'll go up to 2/10 of an inch on this one. Notice that nothing has changed up here. We're still set to square. And now when I click on OK, you can see that it uses those settings that we made to control how that text flows around that document. The other thing that you'll notice is when I have the image right in the middle of the page like this, it splits the paragraph from left to right. So this paragraph that says save time in word width, the very next word is new buttons that show up. So it splits the lines between the left and right. It's not like you're making columns to appear at the left side and the right side of that image. For that reason, I don't typically use larger images like this right in the middle of my text flow because it breaks it up and makes it a little bit harder to read. So I'm going to drag this over and place it at the right-hand side. And now it's easier to read the text and to see the image that's here. But there's another way that I could have done this. If we went back to that dialog box, then what we could have done is we could have said that we wanted the alignment to be right relative to the margin. So we could have placed it to the right margin right there and said that we wanted it, oh, I don't know, left relative to the right margin. And if we'd have done that, you see what it did. It placed it out to the right-hand side of that right margin. But I can go back in here and change that again if I want, so that it is right relative to the right margin. And now notice that it's just off to the side right here. Or you can simply drag it if you prefer to drag and drop the image where you want it to appear on your page. Either way, it's entirely up to you and how you want to work with that document. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but this image that I placed in here was a PNG image. Word allows you to place lots of different types of images within your document. So for instance, I could, if I wanted to, add more random text in here. In fact, we'll add just a little bit more in here. And so we're down on this second page of the document. And if I wanted to, again, I could place the other type of image that I have in here. And this one happens to be a JPEG image. And so again, I go over to the Insert tab of the ribbon. I say Pictures. I'm going to insert from this device. I'm on my desktop again, and I'm going to place this image right in here. And when I do, it shows as a really large image because, again, that's the size of the image that I'm dealing with. This happens to be a picture of my father. And this particular image I can now resize using the same techniques that we used a moment ago. I'm going to click on this lower right-hand handle down here and drag it up so that you can see that it makes it a much more manageable picture at this point. So we'll drag that up just a little bit more, and we end up with a small picture of my father here within the document. Again, notice that this is considered an inline image. How do I know that? Because the text appears just to the right of the image. With an inline image like this, the image is treated just like another character within that line of text. If I want the text to flow around it, I'm going to have to go back up and pick how I want that flowing to occur. And if I later want to change it back to an inline image, then all I have to do is go and choose inline image, just like that. But I'm going to keep it with the text wrapping around it. Notice that the anchor is there again, telling us where this image is anchored. And then I can take that image and again position it where I want it within my document. It's entirely up to me as I just click and drop that image where I want it to be. Now there's a whole lot of other options here on the Picture Format tab of the ribbon. We've only dealt with a couple of them. You can use the other ones if you want to. So for instance, if you want a border around your picture, once that picture is selected, then you can click on one of these and you can say, okay, I'm going to put we'll put an orange border around that particular image. And let me zoom in here so you can see this a little bit. You can see there's a very thin orange border around that image right now. So you can format the images so that they appear with any of these artistic flourishes that you want. Again, that is done with the Picture Format tab of the ribbon, which appears when I select the image itself by clicking on that image. Then I can go back to that Picture Format tab and I can use any of the other options in here to adjust how that image looks. Now I'm going to go back up to this original image that I have up here because there's one final thing that I want to be able to show you in relation to the pictures that you place within your document. Let's say that I want to crop this image just a little bit because I want to get rid of some of this space that's above my mother-in-law's head up here. Well, what I would do then is I would take the crop tool right here, and then all I have to do is select one of these special controls that appear around that image, and I'm going to click on this one and drag it downward, and you can see that I've now cropped the top of that image. And then when I click somewhere else in the document, notice that it's cropped right down to where I had released that cropping tool just a few moments ago. Now it's important to realize that when you crop like this, you're not getting rid of part of that picture. It's still there, it's just not visible within your document. What that means is that it does not decrease the size of your document because you've taken out part of the picture. You haven't really taken it out. You've cropped it so it doesn't appear, but it's still there, it's still taking up space, it's still within your document. The important thing to remember in all of this is back on that Picture Format tab of the ribbon, there are a whole bunch of controls that you can play with to be able to get that image to appear exactly like you want it to appear within your document. Now I know that working with graphics and working with images and pictures can be a confusing area. So I would invite you that if you have questions about how to work with pictures, that you leave those questions in the comments down below this video. And if I'm able to, I will answer some of them so that you can work with them better in your own documents. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the subscribe button near the bottom right corner. Then click the bell icon so that YouTube will let you know whenever a new video is added to the WordTips channel. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with me today.